Welcome back to the Explainer, everyone. Let's jump right into something we talk about a lot, the butterfly effect. We're always obsessing over the battles we actively choose to fight, right? But what about the ones we're completely forced to miss? Today, we're dissecting an epic tale from ancient texts, a cosmic conflict so massive that even an absolute, undisputed victory carried a truly devastating, irreversible cost. Which brings us to the central mystery we are unpacking today. What on earth could possibly keep a hero away when his absolute best friends need him the most? We're talking about Krishna here, a warrior of literally unmatched divine power. His closest allies, the Pandavas, were facing their absolute darkest hour, a disastrous turning point that was going to ruin their lives. And yet, their greatest protector was just AWOL. So, why was he missing? What kind of threat demands the full attention of a godlike being while his friends are being systematically taken apart?
Well, that brings us to part one, the flying city. Because to actually understand his absence, we first have to look at the explosive, highly magical battle he was fighting at that exact same time.
And we are not just talking about a minor skirmish here. The sheer scale of this threat is staggering. Krishna is going up against King Salwa and the Danava forces, and they're operating what the ancient texts call a car of costly metals. Basically, it's a massive flying city that can literally vanish into thin air. So to combat these invisible enemies hiding up in the clouds, Krishna has to pull out some incredibly advanced warfare. He starts firing these will-looking arrows shaped like snakes that actually track targets purely on the perception of sound. If the enemy makes a noise, boom, the arrow finds them. It's this insane high-altitude game of cat and mouse.
But the enemy? They were totally relentless. Knowing he was tracking them by sound, the Asuras start sending up these terrifying, coordinated yells from all 10 quarters of the sky, above, across, everywhere. Imagine the sheer sensory overload of that for a second. The shrieks are coming from literally every conceivable direction, creating this giant dome of total chaos around our hero.
So, we move to part two, buried beneath the mountain. Because yeah, even the absolute greatest warriors can get overwhelmed, and this strategic fight rapidly devolves into a desperate struggle for survival. Out of nowhere, the vanishing flying city reappears at Pragjyotisha, totally bewildering Krishna's eyes. And instantly, literally instantly, the Danavas unleash a massive shower of rocks. The text paints this incredibly visceral picture here. Krishna, his charioteer, his flagstaffs, the horses, they're all buried under these massive crags of rock, piling up like a giant anthill. He completely disappears from sight. And seeing their supposedly invincible leader buried alive, the allied Vishnu army just absolutely panics. They scatter in all directions. The heavens and earth are ringing out with exclamations of "Oh" and "Alas," as his friends weep and wail.
Which leads into part three, the charioteer's warning. Just when the situation seems completely, totally hopeless, we get a crucial intervention from his loyal charioteer, Dwaraka.
Dwaraka actually manages to snap Krishna right out of his defensive state. He realizes Krishna is kind of holding back, maybe showing a bit too much mildness toward King Salwa, so Dwaraka delivers some brutal honesty. He reminds him, look, a ruthless enemy who just destroyed our home, they require absolute, overwhelming force. He essentially tells him, do thou abandon thy mildness. This one is not capable of being vanquished by milder measures. Stop delaying.
All right, part four, unleashing the discus. Hearing that hard truth and knowing Dwaraka has hit the nail on the head, Krishna shatters the mountain of rocks holding him down. He refocuses afresh, and he decides to call upon his absolute most devastating weapon to end the whole shebang. He summons the Sudarsana discus, and wow, the texts describe this thing as a weapon of celestial origin, blazing with fire, completely irresistible. When Krishna hurls it into the sky, it's described as looking like a literal second sun of exceeding effulgence at the end of the Yuga. We are talking apocalyptic levels of power here, sharp as a razor, specifically designed to reduce enemies straight to ashes. And the devastation that follows is totally cinematic. First, that blazing disc cleaves right through the flying town of Saubha, slicing it in twain, just like a saw cutting through a tall tree. The city falls. Then he throws it again, this time aiming directly at King Salwa, splitting him right down the middle, just as he's trying to hurl a heavy mace. With their leader dead and their magic city in burning ashes, the disheartened Danava forces run for their lives in utter terror. Krishna cheerfully blows his conch, securing this massive, undeniable victory that gladdens the hearts of his friends.
So, part 5, the tragic cost of victory. It's a huge, awe-inspiring triumph, right? But let's loop back to our very first question. Why was he missing?
Because this incredible win, it came with a completely devastating, unavoidable cost that would change the course of history.
We're looking at a huge, tragic contrast here. Ultimate victory over Salwa on one side, but the terrible consequence of his geographic absence on the other. Because Krishna was locked in this massive cosmic struggle, buried under mountains and fighting invisible flying cities, he couldn't physically be at the city of Hastinapura, and he states it outright. If he had been there, the enemy Sudarsana wouldn't have been alive. Or at the absolute minimum, that fateful, disastrous match at dice that completely ruined his friends, the Pandavas, it never would have taken place. His total victory in one theater of war basically guaranteed the destruction of his allies in another.
Which brings us to this haunting quote. "What can I do now?" Krishna asks. "It is difficult to confine the waters after the dam is broken." It's such a heavy realization. Even a godlike hero, a guy who throws around a weapon that looks like a second sun, cannot undo the collateral damage of a missed moment. You can't turn back the clock. The dice were rolled, the damage was done, and irreversible fate took its course, while he was off saving his own people.
Part 6. Parting Ways. The dam is broken. The landscape has changed forever, and these victorious but incredibly somber heroes just have to accept reality.
The great gathering of mighty warriors dissolves. After tearful farewells, Krishna departs for Dwaraka on his sun-resplendent chariot. Drishtajumna heads back to his own city with Draupadi's sons. The king of Chedi, Drishtaketu, sets out for the beautiful city of Suktimati, and as all these massive power players scatter across the map to their respective homes, Yudhishthira is just left behind in the harsh forest of Kamyaka, surrounded only by a multitude of Brahmanas and his loyal followers who absolutely refuse to leave him in his exile.
It's such a profoundly humbling lesson from an ancient text. Every single battle we choose to fight, no matter how justified, no matter how spectacular our victory, means we are literally absent from another. We can't be everywhere at once. And sometimes the dam breaks while our attention is elsewhere. So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on as we wrap up today's explainer. When you win the immediate battle, but end up losing the larger moment, how do you handle those uncontrollable ripples of fate in your own life? Really think about that. Thanks for exploring this fascinating text with me today. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.